Welcome to In the Name of the Law, with your host Lisa Speaker from Speaker Law Firm. Joining her today is Stephen Sinus from Sinus Dramus Law Firm, Annie Bailey from Bailey and Terranova Attorneys at Law, and Mary Chartier from Chartier Nyamfukuza PLC. Now, let's discuss some remarkable stories and real cases.
Welcome to In the Name of the Law, a legal talk show about real people and real legal problems. In today's episode, we'll talk with the husband-wife attorney team about how to handle conflicts during divorce cases. We'll discuss race in the criminal justice system, and we'll learn about what to do if you're in an auto accident with a semi-truck. Stay tuned.
In the name of criminal defense.
Welcome back to In the Name of the Law. Today we have Mary Chartier and Takura Nyamfukuza, who are criminal defense attorneys at Chartier Nyamfukuza. And we're going to talk about race in the criminal justice system. So isn't race a pretty big component in a lot of criminal cases?
It is huge. It's huge. I mean, two cases that have made national news are the shooting in Texas by a Caucasian law enforcement officer against a black man in his home.
Eating ice cream,
and then Detroit's own case that's been now known as the gardening while black case. Both of those, I believe race played a huge role.
So let's talk a little bit about those cases. Gardening while black case, what happened there?
So that gentleman was literally gardening. He was trying to make a community a better place. There had been an abandoned piece of property. He actually went to city officials, asked if it was okay if he began a community garden, and was trying to teach children about gardening. And really, there were some women in the community who didn't want that garden to exist, and they just kept ramping up their complaints to the police, including...
They
lies.
accused him rather of being on the sex offender registry.
Which was not true at all.
Right.
He was arrested for that, for being around children while he was on the registry, which was not true.
That's right. Took out personal protection orders against him. They accused him of painting gang colors and graffiti, but in fact it was the Pan-African colors that he'd put on the side of a building. And again, all with permission from the city.
And they accused him of having a gun when he had a rake. So the police went out there, had to search him. He didn't have a gun at all. He was just trying to make the community a better place.
Wow.
What's interesting in that case is the prosecutor charged him, went forward. He was defended by an amazing lawyer who's a great friend of ours, Robert Burton Harris. Robert went to the prosecutor, laid all of this out. As defense attorneys, a lot of times we hold back some things for trial, right? We're certainly not going to show all
your
of our cards. No, we don't do that. But he did, because it was such an affront for this man to have to go through this process. And they said, no, we're going forward anyway. The government put their witnesses on.
And the witnesses were the people that were calling in the complaints and whatnot.
Yes. The judge was so appalled by it that the judge issued a directed verdict, which never really happens in criminal defense cases. I mean, it's extremely rare. And what that means is after the government put their proof on, before the defense attorney puts on any witnesses whatsoever, the judge said there's just not enough here for this man to be convicted.
Case dismissed.
Yes.
That's
Right.
That's right.
And the judge gave, in my opinion, a really passionate interview after that, where the court said, firmly believed that race played a role here.
So when a case is dismissed like that, they can't try to bring charges again, can they? Okay,
No.
Because the trial had started.
Correct, right, so double jeopardy attached.
Who was the judge?
The judge was, I believe, Judge Bryant from Wayne County.
Wow, okay.
And then there's the other case out of
Texas
Texas.
case, right.
A Caucasian law enforcement officer shooting a black man in his home while he's eating ice cream.
That's right. And
Well, how did that happen? How was she in his house?
so they lived in the same complex, but he lived directly above her. So he lived on the 4th floor and she lived on the 3rd, but there were so many cues she missed. For example, there was a bright red welcome mat at his front door, which she did not have. When she walked in, when they took pictures to compare the layout of the apartments, hers was pristine compared to his, which was a little messier. Also, the aroma of marijuana permeated his apartment, and she lived alone. She knew that there was no marijuana, and she should have seen the 4s before every single number on each door finally, I mean, there are other things.
She also climbed an extra flight of stairs.
That's
probably,
correct.
Right.
And even when she parked, right, the parking structure on the third floor and the fourth floor were different. One you could see out of, and the other one had a wall. So there were so many queues, so many.
To me, what's interesting about that case is that she went into this man's apartment and saw a black man on a couch and then automatically went into panic mode, thinking that he was going to be an aggressor. As opposed to, for example, if she saw me sitting on a couch, I really don't believe she would have pulled out a gun and shot me.
She might have said, "What the heck are you doing in my house?"
Right. Right.
Right.
So in my opinion, race played a role there,
Right.
but I also think it played a role in sentencing. We see that
Right.
all the time in the criminal justice system, from when someone is pulled over to charging decisions to ultimately sentencing. And there have been lots of studies, not by criminal defense lawyers, but by the Justice Department, where they talk about race having an impact every step of the way.
Wow. And so what do we do about this problem?
One of the things that we do, because we try so many cases and so many capital cases, is we address it in voir dire. If we think race is going to play a role, and frequently it does, you'll have an African American client and frequently an all Caucasian or predominantly Caucasian jury, we address it right away with the jury. When we're selecting the jury, we ask those questions. I think you have to.
Isn't the defendant entitled to have a jury that has some of people that look like him or her?
Jury of the peers.
Right.
Oh, my days.
Right. You'd think so, and you'd like to think so,
Okay.
but frequently that doesn't happen. Frequently, either the jury pool will be predominantly Caucasian, and it depends on your county, of course, right? In other counties, it's not really much of an issue, but in a fair number in the state of Michigan, it is an issue. When we try cases everywhere, up in the UP, all around the state, we do a lot of federal work, and we're frequently seeing jury composition that doesn't necessarily reflect the race of our client. But you have to address any hot button issue in jury selection, whether it's race or sexual orientation, if it's a part of the case, if it's going to be coming up, drug use, all of that. So for defense attorneys, we're accustomed to addressing it. It's just, it's really important that we do so.
Is there any other way to deal with the problem other than how you select a jury?
If you see the government kicking off jurors of a particular race,
Batson challenge.
Batson challenge. And what's interesting is a federal court in Washington now has an approximately 10-minute video that they showed to potential jurors on implicit bias. When we're not really aware of our bias, but we all have it. We all drive down the street, we see someone pulled over on the side of the road, and we don't think, look at that presumed innocent citizen. We think, oh, I wonder what happened, right?
What did they do?
Right, exactly.
And I was fortunate very recently, and I won't say where, but I was one of the people who helped arrange a fundraiser, 5K, so I'm marking the course. Broad daylight, okay? And somebody called the police on me. The police officer approached me and said, hey, somebody called the police, and fortunately, no charges came out of that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing today.
Thanks, Lisa. If you're interested in hearing more about the Gardening While Black case from the lawyer himself, Robert Burton Harris, check out our podcast, Constitutional Defenders. We're on cndefenders.com, on iTunes, or any other platform where podcasts are hosted. Thanks so much.
In the Name of Criminal Defense is brought to you by Chartier Nyamfukudza PLC. In the Name of Personal Injury Law.
Hello and welcome back to In the Name of the Law. Today I'm with Steve and Tom Sinus, who are partners at the Sinus Dramus Law Firm. And today we're going to talk about some unique type of auto accident cases involving commercial vehicles. What kind of cases are these? How are these cases different?
Well, so I'm very proud to have my brother and partner here. We've had the privilege of working on these types of cases in the past. We've also learned from other attorneys at our firm, our father, other partners, decades of experience handling these cases. And I can just tell you one thing, they're certainly unique given the type of injury involved and the theories of liability. And I think Tom's going to be able to tell us some more specific reasons why they're different.
Yeah, I think the way to think about commercial vehicle cases is that they are really different in every respect from a traditional automobile car crash case. At first blush, they may seem like they are the same type of case, maybe with just different kinds of insurance or a different type of driver. But when you really work on these cases, you begin to appreciate that basically every aspect is different. So what are some examples? There are different theories of liability that come into play in a commercial vehicle setting. For example, one theory of liability that's common in a commercial trucking case is whether or not the particular driver was competent or safe to drive that vehicle. There are a totally different set of laws that apply to commercial vehicles. The federal law and federal regulations, there's a whole book that's maybe the size of a phone book that has its own set of regulations that apply to commercial vehicles. There are different types of defendants. There are different types of insurance carriers that insure commercial vehicles that are different from who you would typically encounter in a traditional automobile liability case, which means there are different types of defense lawyers. There's different types of evidence. The evidence that results from a significant semi-truck crash is just different in scope, it's different in type, and it requires a different type of evidence gathering protocol than you would normally have in a traditional automobile case. So from the very beginning, these cases are different by virtue of the fact that the vehicle involved is a commercial vehicle, which is largely judged by the weight of the vehicle, and that weight of the vehicle will subject that particular vehicle to a whole host of separate rules that then has effects all the way down the line, which also means that the damages in these cases have to be approached and developed differently from the very moment the case is worked up. And Steve and I have had the opportunity to do that in a number of different cases, as have other partners in our firm over the years.
So I think you just said that the commercial vehicle is defined by its weight. So does that mean if somebody's using a vehicle for business purposes that's like a regular car, that does not qualify as a commercial vehicle?
Well, to be clear, the term commercial vehicle can be broad. So if you have a vehicle that's being used in the course of a business operation, that could fall under a commercial vehicle. There's semi-trucks, and so when we're talking about semi-trucks, they're a form of commercial vehicle, and they're governed by the federal regulations that Tom was talking about. So one thing to appreciate is that when you have the commercial vehicle involved, what you have is the possibility that a business, in some shape or form, whether it's a trucking company or a business that owns the vehicle, could be held liable for the damages, and they usually have much bigger insurance policies. So it makes, all the difference in terms of what's available for the injured person.
So can you give us some specific examples of how you've handled these cases how differently than other cases?
Yeah, I think Steve makes a really good point, and your question makes a good point. A commercial vehicle sometimes is a legal definition of a vehicle measured by weight. But oftentimes we use that term in a simple sense to define a vehicle that is a traditional vehicle, but it ends up being subject to a commercial insurance policy. And Steve can talk about a case that him and I worked on that involved just that. It appeared to be a traditional automobile, but in fact, it ended up being a commercial vehicle case.
So we took in the case, you look at the facts and you think, okay, it's just a personal vehicle versus a personal vehicle. Unbelievable damages for this family, a fatality, severe injuries to multiple family members. So you take in this type of case and you're like wondering, what can we do for them? And we assumed that what we could do for them was going to be limited. But then we found out that the vehicle that hit them was owned by a corporation that had a very sizable insurance policy, and that changed everything in the case. And
that's right, and it changed the experts that we hired. It changed our approach to developing an investigation into the accident itself, and it resulted in at least 2 years of work before the case could be ready for any meaningful settlement discussions.
And one thing that happened in the case is that because of the amount in controversy, the other side came up with every single type of theory they could find to escape liability. It was blaming, everybody but themselves for this crash. And so it took this great workup to overcome all those challenges. Because that's what happens. If you have the big amount of controversy, the other side has all the incentive in the world to come up with anything they can to try to minimize what they're going to pay your clients.
So can you give us any examples of larger vehicles, like I think you mentioned semi-trucks?
Tom,
that's a great example. These cases are like any significant case. The defense has at their disposal almost an unlimited amount of resources. So I handled a semi-truck case recently that it was a wreck that occurred in Michigan. But to make a long story short, in order to get justice for the family members in that case, the case actually had to be litigated in another state, many states away. And by litigating the case in another state, we were able to not only argue that another state's law should apply, which put a different level of pressure on the defendant, but we were able to bring into the discussion the possibility that the case was going to be tried in front of a very different jury panel than the defense thought when the crash first occurred. And again, that case took over 2 years, and traveling multiple states and hiring other lawyers and experts to assist us along the way in order to get the case to the point where the defendants were finally willing to take this family seriously. And I think that's really, and Steve I think would agree, the overarching lesson in these commercial cases is that the lawyer representing the family or family members or all the victims has to be willing to go the distance to get justice.
So are the injuries worse in these cases involving commercial vehicles?
Typically, because of the size of the vehicle and the way the crashes occur, they are, which then creates the further reason why justice has to be fought so vigorously. There's another case that comes to mind where the Canadian trucking company that we had to deal with not only American law but Canadian law. So I mean, basically you have to turn over every stone. You have to work up every aspect of it because the other side is doing the same thing. So.
Right. Well, Tom and Steve, thank you so much today for sharing with us about commercial vehicles and accidents. Can't wait to see you again.
Thanks for having us, Lisa.
In the Name of Personal Injury Law is brought to you by the Sinus Dramus Law Firm. Go to WLAJ.com for more information on today's topics and to view other In the Name of the Law episodes. In the Name of Family Law.
Good morning and welcome to In the Name of the Law. Today I have with me Amy Bailey and Mark Bailey with the Bailey and Terranova Law Firm, and they are family law attorneys. And today we're talking about conflicts in the divorce process. So Amy, there's no doubt that divorce cases and custody cases can really involve a lot of conflict. What do we do about that?
Well, Lisa, what we see in the very beginning, usually there's conflict in a relationship before people even come to see us. As you know, when people are heading toward a divorce, there's obviously issues in the dynamics of their family life. When people come to see us, we try to find out if, in fact, this is the solution that is the most likely to occur. Should they try to do some type of counseling to resolve their issues, especially when there are minor children involved, to make sure that they have pursued every avenue possible before they make that final decision.
So moving to the actual filing of the divorce litigation, Mark, do you have any recommendations for people who are facing the prospect of having to file for a divorce?
Oh, I do. First of all, Lisa, people come to us in different phases of things. So Monday is generally our busiest day because things happen over the weekend, apparently. But some people have been separated for a period of time, and in those situations, I think some of the emotions have died down. Oftentimes, however, they come to see us and something has just recently happened. They found out something over social media, they have discovered something with their spouse, and they come in and they're very, very emotionally charged. And what I tell people is that, divorce is really a contract dissolution. If you can strip the emotion aside, it'd be easy, but 95% of divorce is emotion. So I think it's really important to choose your attorney very carefully because some attorneys are problem solvers. They diffuse things. I think it's very important as an attorney to lay it out straight for your client. Let them know precisely what's ahead, what they can expect, because people go through divorce and they talk to friends, they talk to family, they talk to spouses oftentimes, and a lot of times the advice they receive is completely well-intended, but very inaccurate. So it's important for the attorney to really lay it out objectively for them. Don't tell them what they want to hear. Tell them what's ahead so they know and their eyes are open before they go through the process.
So once a divorce action is filed, what happens when you have to deal with the attorney on the other side of the case? Maybe that attorney is not as willing to be frank with their client about the prospects. how do you handle that situation?
Well, that's difficult. And first of all, I want to say that there's a lot of really, really fine family law attorneys in this community. There really are. And the ones that I think do the best jobs are the ones that are looking for solutions as opposed to throwing fuel on, or gasoline onto the fire. So if you have an attorney on the other side, I think that is difficult to work with. I think it's important that you stay professional with them. Your attorney or your client can't feel like she's getting or he's getting kicked all over the place. You have to fight back. You have to be a strong advocate, but you have to solve problems, really. I mean, these problems that are created in these situations are really, for the most part, a process of the marriage, whether it's the custody, whether it's the property, whether it's bank accounts, what have you, paying bills as you go through this so you're not facing creditor problems. These are problems that need to be solved. So rather than pointing fingers and letting judges decide things, as attorneys, let's be competent as counselors and advisors so that they're not falling into these typical sort of problems that you can run into. And I think if you start the case out on the right foot, solving problems, moving forward, dealing with children issues, first and foremost, treating your spouse with some level of respect that, I always say, treat your spouse with the same respect that you treat that greeter that you're so happy to see at Walmart instead of being so angry towards them. I think the case, if it starts out on the right foot, a lot of times stays there. So I try to do that with opposing counsel, is stay professional, deal with the problems, be a strong advocate, but also avoid some of the conflicts if they're unnecessary.
So let's get more specific. Amy, do you have any recommendations, for example, if the family needs to divide up property? Are there specific recommendations to help reduce conflict in those situations?
Definitely. In the beginning of a divorce action, we would encourage people to try to resolve especially issues relating to the division of their furnishings. They know what's in their household. Take a look at every single room and know that you're entitled to 1/2 of the value of what has been accumulated during your marriage. And hopefully they can resolve that issue amongst themselves. Sometimes they cannot. Sometimes they both want the same couch. Sometimes they both want the silverware that Aunt Mary gave them before their wedding.
And do you really want to have a judge make that decision for the couple?
Right, you do not. So what's our alternative? We can hire an appraiser. That appraiser goes in and will provide a value for every single item. That value, though, we have to indicate to people, is a garage sale value. If you put that couch at the end of the road, that's basically the value that you're dealing with. So again, it makes sense to try to resolve that conflict between the two parties and come up with a plan that's equitable to both of them. We see the same thing with houses. You can come up with a value between the two of you. If not, to resolve that conflict, we hire an appraiser. And we try to have an appraiser that's selected by both parties, that they both share in that expense so that we only have to have one appraisal conducted. We then have that value. You see that a lot of times also if we have to value businesses. We hire a professional to value that business. And so we're trying to have the parties work together with a professional to eliminate that conflict.
So really quickly, are there any tips you have to reduce conflict when it comes to custody and parenting time issues?
I think, as Mark touched upon, we have excellent family law attorneys in this area, and usually when the other side employs one of those attorneys, the attorneys can talk and we can try to diffuse the situation, to advise the clients, come on, you got to settle down. Let's show each other the respect that Mark was referring to. You have a long time that you have to work together for the benefit of these children. You want to be able to be in the same at the same wedding. You want to be at the same school events. So let's try to do whatever we can to just keep the peace.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Mark and Amy. Really appreciate your
You're welcome.
insights today.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
In the Name of Family Law is brought to you by Bailey and Terranova Attorneys at Law.
Thank you for joining our show today. We had a lot of really interesting topics, from commercial vehicle auto accident cases to dealing with conflicts in divorce and to gardening while black. Do you guys have any final thoughts about your episode?
Well, I think everyone at this table knows that Lady Justice wears a blindfold, but unfortunately, as the episode that we just talked about today shows, unfortunately, sometimes she peeks, right? And she sees who it is, whether it's the law enforcement officer or the prosecutor, and unfortunately, it doesn't always work the way that it's supposed to. But justice was done in this instance, and as I was listening to this story, I thought about the times that I've been on the receiving end of this treatment. Unfortunately for me, it didn't develop into charges, but I'm just glad for this man and his family that it played out the way that he did.
But they still had to go through the ordeal of a criminal case.
Indeed.
Right.
And I was thinking, our segments might not, when you first look at them, look like they connect at all. But I think about the word struggle and the need to fight for your rights, and, if you're talking about conflict and divorce, you're talking about Takura's situation, you're talking about commercial vehicles. I mean, what you have at stake is the need to really have your attorneys dig in and do everything they can to help you with your situation. And when we have catastrophically injured commercial vehicle clients, we have to do everything we can for them. And that's what I hear Amy and Takura talking about today, too.
And as far as in divorce situations, clearly, as we discussed earlier, there is a lot of conflict in the very beginning. And what our goal is try to calm people down, encourage them to work together, and hopefully, for the benefit of all involved, their issues can be resolved.
Right. So we should have shirts that say the struggle is real, I guess. Right?
And the law definitely is real, that's for sure.
And there's a lot to say about, the attorneys you have on a case and whether they're going to be willing to do the hard work that goes into actually revealing the truth. Right. I think, especially for Steve's clients and Takura's clients, it's a little bit of a different angle for Amy's clients, where you're maybe trying to need a sophisticated enough attorney who can try to work things out. So it's a little bit of a different angle.
Broker peace there. But
broker
still,
peace, exactly.
It still takes an attorney knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think one thing that our clients have in common is that whatever it is that brings them through our doors has happened in the past.
And they didn't choose for it to happen, or it happened to them.
That's right.
And they're like, what do I do now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of divorcing people feel the same way. I mean, whatever bad thing happened, whether one party was unfaithful or for whatever reason the marriage didn't work out, there's really the sense of loss, right?
Definitely. And sometimes it takes years for them to come through our doors, but other times it's one event occurs and they show up, and try to take care of them as soon as they walk in the door.
And that's when you become truly a counselor in many respects, right?
Definitely.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Steve, Takura, and Amy, for your time today and for sharing your clients' stories.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for In the Name of the Law. Please go to WLAJ.com for more information on today's topics, and please join us next week for another informative show.